I don't know many dental operators right now that have a full team. Teams have told us we are not happy with the dental industry. We are no less happy with dental groups than we are with single practices. We don't want to work in this industry. That's why we lost all of our talent through COVID, and that's why it hasn't come back.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited for today's episode, but before we get started, as usual, we're going to do our Ask Ken question. And this question that came in was really interesting, and it was hard for me to figure out how to answer this succinctly, but I think I got it. The question was, if a DSO wants to grow from 5 to 10 locations, what financial frameworks should I be putting in place to make sure growth does not break my DSO? Love this question. Love the fact that you even are self-aware enough to know that you could break your DSO, because I've seen some, especially in this 5 to 10 range, where things just completely fall apart. So the thing we really have to talk about here is, first of all, don't sign any leases yet. Don't do anything. The first thing you've got to do is you've got to build out a model so that we can say from 5 to 10, what is that going to take? And so that we can put a financial lens on this on a month by month, year by year basis to see what's actually going to happen as a result of this. How many people are you going to need to add to your DSO infrastructure to support? How many regional managers are you now going to need? And how are you going to structure that? Who's training them? There's just so much that goes with this. The number one thing is, though, from a financial perspective, you want to model this so that you just have total confidence that what you're doing is going to create the best outcome possible for your organization, but also for your patients and for your employees and especially your associates. And so with that, I'm going to lead right into Dr. Roman, because I think that plays right into what we're going to be talking about.
I think so too.
So, sorry, I'd call Dr. Roman Eric. I probably not formal
You should
enough.
call me Eric. You should call me Eric. Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time. So grateful you've joined us. Why don't you just give your brief overview, and then we're going to jump right into your truth, which I know is, when I read about it, I thought, man, our listeners are really going to benefit from what you have to share.
Yeah. Well, Ken, I've been in this industry almost 20 years. My entire existence as a dentist has been multi-location world. Like, I am a DSO native. And I think over the course of my career, I've watched us go from the first generation of DSOs to the second to the third, and now like looking towards the fourth. I've had the ability to build 2 different dental groups, and one was a great success. The other was a complete failure. So I've got a lot of failures to talk about inside of the journey. I was blessed to be able to exit being a CEO and a full-time CEO and operator in 2019. And I've spent the years since coaching several billion in annual revenue for other groups doing the same thing. Ken, if anybody that knows Eric Roman knows he's been around the block a couple of times, taught everything and built systems for people in every portion of this, from team development and culture development to dentist development to, executive leadership structures. And that's kind of the game for when we're inside of this industry. And so, aside from that, Ken, something I've been passionate about is that we deserve to enjoy the journey and get what we want in our lives as a result of doing this. This is one of the hardest professions to win at on earth. And it sucks. And my hope is that maybe in the future of what I do, we can make it a little bit better for people. So how was that for an Eric Roman intro?
That was amazing. And I've been here maybe just a couple more years than you, and we'll have to actually maybe offline count who has had more failures during that period of time, but we may collectively have a lot. We'll see.
Yeah. That's like the fail-a-thon, right? And probably, Ken, you talk about dental truths. Nobody likes to talk about the failures. Failure is probably one of the most consistent things for people that operate here, micro or macro, right? And yet nobody talks about that. So there's a dental truth for you, Ken.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, let's jump into it. What did you come today ready to just educate us all about the dental industry and how things can change?
Well, I guess the TLDR, like straight to the point, I think that our industry's growth and perpetuation of an associate model and our failure to manage it well, to care for the associates and give them a successful pathway to perform, I think that is the single biggest factor that is destroying our industry. And I think we're acting like it's not there, that it's an invisible profit drain that people have just turned a blind eye to. And I think, it's funny too, Ken, I think that everybody complains and they think, oh, it's turnover. I could probably make you a case that dentist underperformance might be costing dental groups. I think this is in the millions of dollars per year for anybody that's got maybe more than 5 or 6 dentists inside their company, I think this could be a $1 million+ per year opportunity.
Wow. And that'd be maybe for a DSO, say 10 locations, 20 locations. You think that's...
I think that the numbers are far worse, Ken, than anybody gives credit to.
Okay.
And I think, and let's even set aside the numbers.
Well, and I was afraid that the numbers somebody might say, oh, well, that's what Heartland's issue is, or that's what PDS's issue is. But we're talking about your mom and pop DSOs that are coming up every day.
Listen, if your dentist is underperforming $10,000 per month on a year, that's $120,000 for one dentist. But that's 10,000. I know dentists that are underperforming by 40 and 50,000 relative to what's possible, right? And then we look at patient turnover from bad care. We look at team turnover. But Ken, dollars and cents, I actually think, Ken, that I think this is at the center of the complete degradation of our industry. Here's my case. In virtually 20 years here, Ken, question number 1, are patients happier and better off and more content and satisfied by dentistry today than they were 20 years ago? The data says no. The data says that dentists have gone from being one of the top 3 most trusted professionals to not even present on the list. Patients don't trust dentists anymore. And I'm going to add to this a DSO problem. Ken, in my neighborhood, you've been to my house, we've got a big Facebook group. Literally once per month, someone goes into this group and says, I need a dentist that's not a chain. What does that say? It's that patients are now trained that multi-location practices deliver inferior care. So, point number 1, I'd say we'd all agree patients are not more content. Point number 2, are our teams happier? Listen, I don't know many dental operators right now that have a full team. Teams have told us we are not happy with the dental industry. We are no less happy with dental groups than we are with single practices. We don't want to work in this industry. That's why we lost all of our talent through COVID, and that's why it hasn't come back, right? Right now, we see a lot of assisting schools that are struggling to even get people in to become dental assistants because at $15 an hour, they got a lot of happier places they can work. So patients, no. Teams, no, they're not happier. What about the dentists? Dentists with the perpetuation of groups, Ken, have made more money in the last 10 years than dentists have ever made. Dentists are getting 2 to 3 times as much for their practice relative to what they would have had before. We know a lot of dentists, you and I do, that have made absolute tons of money off of this. So are dentists, for all the money they've made, happier? Absolutely not. In fact, the data says that dentists are just as happy or less happy today. They're not retiring. They're not content. The people you and I know sell their companies for 9 figures and they're like, I hate it. I'm upset. I want to go. Now I have to go do it again. So what's the one thing that nobody's touched throughout all that evolution? I say we've gone from 10 to 15% of the dentists in America being associate employees to now over 50% at the same time that all those things have happened. I think that it is the plight of the employed associate dentist that is at the center of all of it. That's my dental truth, Ken.
All right. Fascinating. So there's so much to unpack there. We will never have enough time to do that. Let me put it this way. You'll appreciate this. So I am working with a group that's bringing on a pretty sizable amount of debt because it's time for them to get some outside capital so that they can continue to grow and build new practices and those sorts of things. And they're in the credit world, they have something called the 5 C's of credit. And that's when you're going to borrow money or those things. It's like, these are the truths. And I got to the bottom and I immediately said to myself, there's something missing here for dental, for DSOs specifically. And it is culture. When somebody looks from the outside in at the financials of a business, they're using these 5 C's. They should have a 6th C in my mind, which is culture, because culture has so much to do with, I think, what you just identified as the big truth, which is that associates have just been neglected through this entire time in this entire process. Tell me, how do you react to that?
Ken, I'm a huge advocate for culture. What you're actually saying though, so culture just in general is critical and important.
Right.
But like dentist culture in particular is like a separate entity. And so, one of the things that I think has been a failure along the way is that we have decided that we're going to treat dentists like employees. They're just another employee, has been a lot of this, right? A lot of companies, DSOs, that their go-to-market strategy is dentists are disposable. We have a great big front end. We hire them in with all these things, and then we get rid of them if they're like annoying us, and it's fine. And the catch is, how many other employees do you know that have like a baseline $500,000 debt load? How many other employees do you know that are trained to be professionals and in truth have a responsibility for leadership? I think that's probably at the cornerstone of what, and so your point is, does culture matter? My point is, you're absolutely right that dentist culture is critical, but for a lot of reasons, we have created this environment that associate dentist culture is like just not sustainable. That's the other thing you said. It's one thing for it to be okay at a point, but is it sustainable to drive continuous growth? No, right? I look at how frequently I have a customer I'm working with right now, in about 30 or 40 locations, and they've got 5 of them that have no dentist, right? Like, this is not good for sustainable revenue.
Wow.
And
so they're just sitting empty because no doctor, no anything, right?
Or is it worse? We've had a lot of people that say, is it worse to actually have it empty or worse to have a locum tenens and they're destroying the practice summarily, right? Yeah. We've heard both stories before, and so this is the reality of the world that we operate in now. And when I think about it, like what you're reminding me of, like what started this, I call it the associate lie. And the associate lie that I even helped perpetuate was that companies say, don't worry, associate dentist, we know how to create success for you. All you have to do is show up and do great dentistry. We'll take care of the rest, which has never been truth. It has always been a lie. It's that like nobody ever can cover all the things and just have this dentist show up and we're going to show the dentist how to grow. Right. We're going to show them how to do great dentistry. We're going to show them how to talk to patients. No, we've always failed at this. We've never created predictable pathways, but we said we did. And so that means the expectation for the associate doesn't match the reality. And here we are.
Wow. This is a powerful truth. This has decades of legacy that when you stop and think about how do you change it, there's
yeah.
How do you influence it for the better? I mean, it's that Titanic that you can't steer it out of its course, it feels like. So what are your thoughts on this? How do we turn this to the other side and say how does the revolution go the other way?
Yeah, revolution's a good word, Ken. I like what you said too about the Titanic. It's like a train going down the tracks. It's a Titanic that you can't turn. We know it's going to hit the iceberg, or it already has, and we're sinking. You know what else is interesting too, Ken? If you think about this, for most groups, this is 70 or 80% of their revenue comes from this space. And yet what the DSO industry has actually done is it has built only around the periphery of it out of a fear to step inside. And it's not for lack of trying. So maybe what are we going to do, Ken? Why are we where we are? We perpetuated a lie. We built an industry around it. And oftentimes when we stepped into the conversation, things got worse than they were. One of the things that clinical directors tell me all the time, I ask them, do you talk to your dentist? And they're like, no, because when I do, they leave. Well, that's really interesting. Like, And I've looked at the data and there's actually a truth. And then I talk to the associates. I'm like, hey, why did you leave? It's because, when the owner talked to me, all they talked to me about is how much I'm failing. Right? So I would say point number 1, Ken, how does Eric Roman, this is a Titanic. It's a Titanic because we have a 2-headed monster. 1, we have not created, communicated, and delivered a pathway for dentists to be able to actually be successful on a consistent basis. That's what they signed up for. That's what we said we were going to deliver. We never gave it to them, which brings me to the other head of this monster. And the other head of this monster, Ken, is until I created it, there has been zero guidance, training, standard for how we deliver on clinical leadership. So we have not shown the associates how to be successful, nor have we shown clinical leadership teams, whether it's a clinical director, a CEO doing it, or a team, we haven't set any standards for them. Everything inside of my life, Ken, is about establishing the recipe and establishing the rhythm. And neither of these two things have a recipe or a rhythm. And so I think the first thing for us, Ken, 1, recognize how we got here. Two, I'm saying, hi, I'm Eric Roman. I've built the recipe for associate success and I've built the recipe for clinical leadership success. And what I hope is that more people step into this area. My recipes aren't perfect, but until we own that these two things are responsibilities, we're just going to keep talking about, let's just do a better job with RCM, or maybe we can overcome our patient turnover by bringing more people in the front door, or, maybe we
getting
can,
our supply costs from 4% to 3.5%, right?
that'll save our company, said no company ever, right? Actually, it's funny though, because what you just said, Ken, is that there's a predictable recipe for how we move that supply cost. Does it have a substantial benefit? Not towards saving a company. And yet, how many companies do you know, Ken, that have stood up and said, this is our consistent recipe for how we know how to develop and guide dentists to success? And this is our company recipe for how we know that we take great care of these dentists, bring more in, and continuously culture and care for them, So it's like a starting point.
Is there anyone out there? I'm just wondering this. So, say there's a small to medium DSO that's got a doctor as the CEO that has is there any model out there that you can sort of, outside of you creating, the only recipe that exists, that who have you talked to? Who have you networked with, so to speak, to try to figure this out? Because I mean, this is $1 billion problem.
It really is.
It
really is. Yeah.
And I had no idea that it could be that big, but my eyes have been opened now. And so unfortunately, right, the solver in me is like, all right, so how do we?
Yeah.
And there's no way. How do you take a bite of that elephant? It's just,
you can just join our team, Ken. It'll be fine. Yeah, we got this. Ken, so a couple of things that I have discovered. Here's a couple of discoveries relative to your point. Who else is talking about it? Who's doing anything about it? The first thing that we've discovered is obviously our large cap DSOs, right? They're investing outrageous amounts. I mean, we're talking millions upon millions every year. And what most of them are saying is so many of their initiatives are failing. What they're struggling with is they're saying, hey, we're doing these things, but we're not really getting the ROI that we're expecting from this. So number one, and the other thing that I've discovered, I say this in love, who are the clinical leaders that are in these large DSOs that have been doing it forever? They're the people that built a lot of the systems from the initiation and just graduated into it. So because you were good at it, you're doing it. They didn't have a book. They didn't have a guide. They didn't have a mentor on it. They just built it. They're also 2 generations removed from the dentist that they're now hiring. And that's another breaking point that we're seeing, is that the generational dynamics have shifted from from clinical leadership dentists' perspective to now a totally different world. So first challenge, when I see groups, and I do see groups, I see very few of them that are doing this really well. Ken, this is their smack recipe for success. So absolutely, are they going to share it with other people? Heck no. So the groups that have figured this out, I mean, I say this, my group wasn't, my last group that I built wasn't perfect. We invested $2.5 million plus over the course of about 4 years to develop version 1.0 of a lot of these systems. They're expensive to develop. They're who has time? I thankfully had a big leadership team and good partners to help carry the load so that I could invest time, energy, and effort on this. But at the end of the day, Ken, what we built became the foundation for what consolidators wanted to buy. And so when a consolidator buys these systems, they want to keep them inside the company. And then there's the last thing that I've discovered.
The lack of abundance mindset amongst outsiders, private equity, all of those sorts of things.
And then maybe my last discovery is that there are some cool communities where people come together to talk about it. Hey, let's get some clinical directors together and clinical leaders and talk about what's going on. That's great, Ken. But what I've discovered, it's wonderful to have others that you're interacting with and talking with. Absolutely necessary. But there's got to be a starting recipe to sit there and say, because everybody keeps asking, well, what should I do? Holy cow. Before you get there, start here. So, the people that are doing it well, are doing it for themselves and driving and deriving their success from the fact that they did these things as an outlier performer. The other thing though, Ken, is that I would say that's like a 2%. There's 2% that this is the excellence of their company. They're the ones that aren't hurting for dentist recruits. They're the ones that dentists are clamoring to work with, and the ones that very few dentists leave, and the ones that are getting outlier performance. If you're listening to this and that's not you, here we are.
Fascinating. Well, this has been illuminating, obviously, alarming a little bit, to be fair.
Yeah, the ding goes off, and that means it's the alarm.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So as we think about wrapping up this episode, because we're not going to solve that today. It's not going to get solved for quite a while. What advice for if I'm a DSO leader listening to this, if I'm an associate listening to this,
yes,
what advice would you share to those two groups? Because they're the two that are by far the most impacted. Well, I shouldn't say that, because there's a whole sea of patients that are being impacted by this.
And team members.
I really probably shouldn't try to know that, but maybe if you could just talk about DSO leaders and associates, how should they be navigating through this at this point in time?
Let me start with the associate. And Ken, I think that many people would be surprised how many dentists today are entering into associateship believing that they can be a career associate. They actually want to be for a number of reasons. They truly are willing to put their money where their mouth is, to have work-life balance, and they're content to work in somebody's company. And what those associates deserve, and so I'm speaking to the associate, is that you need to find a company that has a demonstrated success record and a documented recipe to be able to get you there, and the rhythm to keep you on track. That's what you should really be looking for. And I need you to know they exist. They exist out there, and it's a total possibility. The last thing that I will say to those associates, though, is that do not let your identity be dentist. You signed up to be a dentist because there was an expectation of a life that you get out of it. That means that you have to be as active at managing to ensure that you're getting your life results along with the practice results. And what I find with associates, Ken, is that we just become so invested in dentistry world. That's what part of professional training, that we lose sight that we're just humans living lives as well. And that pathway goes to darkness and destruction. So those are my messages for the associate side. Go ahead. Yeah, talk about the associate.
Like if I could just sort of try to put a bow on that, it seems like what we're talking about here is the associate investing into themselves outside of the practice of dentistry, and maybe even investing in their family or whatever those other things are that bring them joy and refill them so that they can then show up 100% ready to rock and roll as an associate. Is that fair? And vice versa.
Yes. So when you chose to be an associate, what you didn't get the opportunity to do is you're not letting go of your responsibility to lead. As an associate, there are a lot of things inside the company you have zero control over. Do not complain or focus your energy on that. You have too many things inside of your own performance that you have control over that you can use to be a $3 million a year generating dentist. Those things are under your control. And if you don't own your leadership and your ability to be great, nobody else is going to own it for you. Being an associate isn't letting go of leadership. Great point, Ken.
Awesome.
Yeah. So how about the clinical leaders, right?
Yeah.
How about the other side of this? Listen, Ken, most clinical leaders that I'm encountering right now are in one of three camps. They've started the growth journey and they realize, holy cow, I got to get control over this and I want to do it the right way. Number two, they've gone pretty far down the road and they're saying, I know that this is actually the thing standing in the way of my growth. And if we don't fix it, we're going to have big problems. Or three, they're way down the road and they're so browbeaten that they've given up. Oftentimes they've said, there's no way we can fix this. We're just going to have to suffer with it and not care. And what I'm saying to them is I'm saying, hey, we have deceived ourselves on the value of solving this. And it's time for us to make a mutual commitment to a solution. And that it's time for, like, if you can establish what the recipe is for success inside of your clinical leadership, and if you and your clinical leadership team can have a rhythm for executing on it, and Ken, it's no different than what we should be doing in any other facet of our business. Have the recipe and then have the rhythm to execute. Your team needs to be hungry for that and committed to it. And if you don't feel comfortable in building that recipe yourself, find somebody like me that's already built one. But there are some great teams out there that know how to build these things. It's just a commitment. And too often, Ken, like we either chase the shiny pennies or the thing, like let's just cover some supplies cost or something else, or we give up on like, hey, this thing didn't work or that thing didn't work, so nothing's going to work. And this is too big an issue for clinical leadership teams to take that attitude. The obstacle is the way, and this is the obstacle.
Amazing. Man, amazing. I wish you'd thought about this a little bit more.
Ken, we talked about being failures. I'm failing through it every day myself right now. And what I honored as a commitment, I said, listen, my life is committed to like ushering in the next generation of what great group practice looks like. I believe in it. And I realized nobody anywhere is solving for this. And so what it meant though, just like what I said to clinical leaders, it meant I have to fail at this every day to figure out the solution. I have to be willing to suck at it in order to help everybody find a better pathway. It's hard to do, Ken. It's hard to like look every day and be like, crap, we have a lower percentage of dentists that are actually engaged as a result of this than what we wanted to have, but that actually isn't my fault. That's the reality of our circumstances. So now what am I going to do?
Yeah. So Eric, this has been an amazing discussion, amazing episode. I can't wait actually for this to go live. And I think you've probably cemented yourself in, it's probably like every 6 months or so, we're going to have to update just so we can hear, because this is such a journey and there's so many pieces to the puzzle. It's going to be fun to watch. So yeah, we'll definitely need to make this regular. So Eric, if you wouldn't mind, just share with the audience your contact information if anybody wants to reach out to you, and then we'll wrap this episode.
Yeah, well, you want to find out more, I am Dr. Dr. Eric, E-R-I-C, J. Roman, at drericjroman.com. And you can find out more about how I serve or our dental associate growth program, how we directly develop your associates for you and then work with your clinical leadership team to install the systems you need. And so if you want to find out more, that's where I am. And I'm pretty much everywhere else, Ken. If you're around the dental group space, you're going to find Eric Roman eventually. So it would bring me joy to be able to serve you or your team.
Awesome. Eric, thank you so much for being here. That's it for today's episode on the Dental Truth Project. Thanks again, Eric. This has just been an amazing discussion. Or if you enjoyed the episode, follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We drop a new episode every Wednesday morning. I'm Ken Kaufman, and until next time, keep seeking the truth that helps dentistry thrive. Happy day.